Analysis of results. Significance of results with respect to past research. Generally, past experiments have found that English speakers prefer late closure options to the early closure options. However, in my experiment, I found that 87% of the L2 Spanish speakers who primarily speak English, in fact, chose early closure as the level of closure for the sentences and disambiguation. My experiment found, essentially, that the L2 Spanish speakers interpreted sentences the same as the L1 Spanish speakers do in theory. They appear to have access to their second language's unique prosodic contours. Significance of results with respect to my hypothesis. Essentially, these results disprove my hypothesis. L2 learners of Spanish, the test group, responded with the early closure interpretation 87% of the time. My hypothesis was that the L2 learners of Spanish, the test group, would respond with late closure interpretations the majority of the time, as has been established as the pattern of the English language. However, this was not the case. Some takeaway ideas from this are that the results indicate L2 learners of Spanish and of languages in general are able to acquire prosodic contours, even if they are different from the L1 contours that they have been taught earlier in their lives through positive evidence. L2 learners can apply new, unique prosodic contours to languages that they are acquiring. Another interesting facet of this experiment was that in more complex sentences, L2 speakers were more likely to revert to L1 prosodic contours. Essentially what this means is that in sentences that were more complex or more difficult to understand, the L2 speakers likely had less positive evidence and therefore had to revert to their L1 contours of the sentences. These are the only prosodic contours that they would possess in that scenario, and so it makes sense that they would use them and fall back on them as a safety net. In terms of further research, I think it would be interesting to look into different languages and the interlinguistic RC attachment preferences across them.